Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the totally awesome podcast, the TAP podcast, so bad that it might make you tap out. Today is Monday, the 22nd, and yesterday I stayed up until about 4 o'clock watching AEW Dynasty, which, I'm reviewing the show. That's what this video is for. You're welcome. So yeah, and the reason why I stayed up so late watching it is because I work. I have this thing called a life. Yeah, I was out delivering pizza while people were watching the show, and then I got home and I was like, I guess I'll watch this show. And I did, and I thought it was actually pretty good. Now, as many of you that have been following me, and Sean and Skylar for that matter, we're not overly fond of AEW as a company, especially over the past couple weeks where they've really... Apparently, it seems like been doing everything humanly possible to embarrass themselves at every corner. Like the whole thing with the CM Punk footage that aired on Dynamite, which was incredibly embarrassing, a huge black eye for the company. Immediately followed by Will Ospreay bitching and moaning about Triple H. And plus with the declining tickets and attendance and ratings and viewership, AEW has never been more ice cold. And I didn't really care that much going into this pay-per-view. But I was like, well, I mean, it's a thing that happens, so I might as well watch it. And I'm glad I did. It is a little frustrating, though, because I did think this was a very good show. Not everything on the show was great, and I'll get into my more in-depth thoughts in a second. But watching this show, especially during some of the better matches on the show, like I'll get to Will Ospreay and Bryan Danielson in a second, I'm just like, this show still, even though I talk a lot of shit about it, and so do my friends, and so do a lot of people, it still has so much talent, and it has so much potential. And while I did enjoy the show, I did like the show, it just makes me sad because I would love it if AEW were as on fire as WWE is right now. For those of you that are like, oh, JoshAgeddon's just an e-drone. That's a new term I've learned recently, an e-drone. Listen, I do not know brand loyalty. The only thing I know brand loyalty for is Monster Energy. That's it. I don't care what the initials of the company is. I'm not a WWE fan. I'm not an AEW fan. I'm a wrestling fan. I want to see good wrestling. I don't care what company's doing it. And right now, WWE seems untouchable. Not perfect, but they're on a roll right now, and AEW appears to be on the decline. Yeah, they come out with a show like this, it's very good, and I'm just like, man, I wish that everything they did was this good. If both WWE and AEW were on fire right now, I would be so happy. Because I've always said, what's better than one good wrestling company? Two good wrestling companies. And we were briefly excited about TNA, and then they fired Scott D'Amore, and then Sacrifice was basically unwatchable because of all the technical problems. And I'm just like, it feels like WWE is the only company that has its shit together at the moment. But again, trying not to get too off the beaten path here, talking about AEW's newest pay-per-view Dynasty. Although again, I will reiterate, it's sad watching a good pay-per-view by AEW because I wish Tony Khan would step aside and let someone else book the show. I really do. Because the TV that build, like the build of this show was garbage. The build of this show was not great. And I didn't watch a whole lot of what they did to build to it. But what I have seen was horrible. Like the whole attempt to turn the CM Punk footage into part of the build for the tag team ladder match was so dumb, and so many people have described it as a self-inflicted wound, and I agree. But again, I will talk about this pay-per-view eventually once I'm done ranting, I guess. But so yeah, overall thoughts: this was a good show. There were several matches that I really enjoyed. One in particular, which I'm pretty sure the consensus will be unanimous about what match was the best of the night. But I did not watch the pre-show or the buy-in or the 0 hour Dark 30, whatever the hell they call the pre-show now. I didn't watch it because I don't care. The show kicked off with Kazuchika Okada defending the AEW Continental Championship against Pac. Before I get into the match, the one thing that annoyed me is a common thread that it's something I talk about whenever I talk about an AEW show or a New Japan show at this point. Too many titles. The AEW Continental title should not exist. Like, you have a Continental title and an International title. Honestly, you don't need either of them. Let alone both of them. Why does this show have 3 secondary titles? Like with WWE, it makes sense because WWE isn't just one show, it's 2 brands. So each brand has a secondary title. And even then, they're erring on the side of having too many titles because I still don't like that they split up the tag team titles, but at least they're trying to differentiate them. And I booed when they announced that they were introducing an NXT Women's North American title because they don't need one. But anyway, I will say one good thing about the Continental title, at least this championship has its own set of rules. It's like their version of the ROH Pure Championship, which again, it's another damn title, but at least it has its own rules. Like, there's no outside interference and some other stipulations that I can't remember off the top of my head, but I don't see the need for this title and the international title and the TNT title. You don't need 3 secondary championships. It's ridiculous. Like, if everyone has a belt, then being a champion doesn't mean a whole lot. But my bitching aside, I loved this match. I thought this was great. And these two, Okada and Pac, they have chemistry. I think this might be the first time they've ever wrestled together. They were great together. Like it was very hard hitting, technical at points. And one thing that really impressed me about this match that I haven't seen a whole lot from Okada, his facial expressions in this match. He was a lot more emotive in this match. I've heard a lot of criticism that Okada is very emotionless and kind of boring. Not in this match. He had a lot of different facial expressions. Like, he had an evil grin and evil chuckle whenever he was in control. He had a shocked expression whenever one of his moves didn't work or got kicked out of. I was watching his face a lot during the match, and he was way more expressive than usual. So, good. Yeah, he's not doing as much as far as moving the needle because, I mean, if you don't watch New Japan, odds are you don't know who Okada is. Not a lot of casual fans or people that just watch WWE are going to know who Okada is. So it's a shame because he's one of the best wrestlers in the world, in my opinion. And I just wish that he was being utilized better. But again, this match was very good. And Pac is incredible, even though he's been beaten and vanished and beaten. Pac has done not a lot in AEW. He was the first ever international champion back when they called it the All-Atlantic title. That's all he's done in AEW. And you want to talk about missed opportunity. And again, Pac loses again in this match. Although, again, I have it in front of me. It was 21 minutes and 55 seconds. So, he didn't get beaten just in 5 minutes. But I saw it last night, and I just woke up. I'm working on, like, 7-ish hours of sleep, so I'm a little tired. I'm not going to remember everything. But I will say there was one spot in this match where Okada delivered the Randy Orton DDT from the barricade on the floor. That looked brutal. It looked like he crushed Pac's skull with that. And almost got the count out. But one thing I will say, one thing we usually criticize AEW about is their referees are the worst and they never adhere to rules. There was not as much as you would like, but there was more rule following and rule adhering than normal in this show, which was nice. But yeah, I very much loved it. Like, Pac is really good at taking just absolutely debilitating, devastating bumps and just shots to the face that, like, I'm just like, how did that, like the finish of this match where he tried the Black Arrow and Okada got the knee up, it got Pac right in the jaw. I'm like, how in the world did you not break this man's jaw off of that? The knee got him right in the face, and it was brutal. And one good thing about Pac is, like, again, he takes crazy bumps for stuff. One criticism that I've heard a lot is Okada's finisher is lame, which, I mean, I like the Rainmaker under 2 occasions when Okada's, like, motivated and he's up against someone who can take a good bump for it. Because if he's like, and the guy he's wrestling can't bump that well, it's going to look what you're going to like, really? That's your finisher? But the one he gave Pac, he put everything into it, and Pac bumped like crazy for it. It looked it's the most devastating looking Rainmaker clothesline I've seen in a while. So, my one criticism of this match, outside of the Continental title, plus also the name. Really, the WWE has had the Intercontinental title for decades, and they're like, we're going to call this one the Continental title. Wonder where you got that idea from. But my one criticism about this match is the opener does not need to go 21 minutes. If they trimmed off like 5 minutes in this match, I feel like it would have been better. But it didn't take away from the enjoyment. Although there was a point where I was like, okay, how much longer is this going to go? I'm enjoying it, but this is the opener. You don't want to blow your load prematurely. Isn't that right, ladies? No one at Andy because of that. I don't need her telling you guys my business. Anyway, where did that come from? So yeah, this was a very good way to kick off the show. A little long, but it's AEW. Every match they have goes about 10 minutes too long. But I thought it was good. I would have much preferred this just be a singles match, like them feuding over something other than Pac going, I want that championship, and Okada going like, okay. But again, I thought this was a very good way to kick off the show. Up next, we had a trios match, House of Black versus the most random hodgepodge tag team of all time. The TNT champion, Adam Copeland, the New Japan Strong Openweight champion, whatever the hell that means, Eddie Kingston, and the ROH World Champion, Mark Briscoe. Normally, I'm not super crazy about AEW trios matches, and in this one, we even had Rick Knox as the referee. Rick Knox is the absolute worst referee in the history of the known universe and the unknown universe. If there's alternate realities that we do not know of, Rick Knox is still whispered in hushed tones because of his awfulness. But even then, even he was on his best behavior in this matchup. Because there was a point where everyone was doing a bunch of moves, but it didn't last forever like it normally does in an AEW trios match. And there were points where Rick Knox was actually counting people, so that was nice. Still looks like a sarcophagus, but whatever. This match was fine. Although, again, I'm not super crazy about trios matches, in AEW in particular, because it just degenerates into madness and chaos so much, to the point where your eyes start glazing into the back of your head. Also, I really don't like Eddie Kingston. He has very much... Eddie Kingston has soured on me so much, I can't stand why. For one, his machine gun chop always looks so goofy and dumb. And he looks like a bowling pin. He looks like a homeless bowling pin. And he throws the worst ensiguri, and I just don't like anything he does anymore. There was a point where I was like, yeah, he's pretty good, and there was a point where Sean loved him. I don't get it. And the whole New York thing is annoying. It makes me think of Vince Russo, even though he doesn't say bro 100 bajillion times per stanza. But yeah, I just don't. I'm not super crazy about Eddie Kingston, and it's weird seeing Adam Copeland as a secondary champion in the second match of the night in a trios match. Like, I don't know what... I get that Adam Copeland is like, oh, I'm going to AEW because I want to have fun, but you're Edge, dude. How are you not in like a marquee match? Man, I see Adam Copeland and I'm like, man, this is what it looks like when you're falling on hard times. Not specifically because he's in AEW, although they have not been doing him any favors, but how can you not see him just in this random trios match, second on the card, not even the opener, and just like, man, the mighty have fallen. But again, this was fine. Nothing in here really stood out to me in particular. I did like when two people were on the when a lot of them were on the apron, and Edge and one of the other ones was in the ring. I think it was Adam and I think it was Brody King. They were all in the ring. Those two were in the ring, and everyone else was on the apron. And the good guy team did triple spears. That is actually one thing that I failed to mention in the previous. We're gonna go back to the previous match real quick between Okada and Pac. Another criticism that I was thinking about during the match. It was kind of hard to tell for a little bit who the babyface and who the heel was. The first couple minutes of the match, Pac was the heel, and then Okada got a little bit of a comeback. But then they switched, and for the rest of the match, Okada was clearly the heel and Pac was the babyface. And I was like, well, that's confusing. So that was a theme throughout the night. The heels and baby faces in some of the matches were not clearly defined. In this match, though, that it was House of Black was obviously the heels, and Team Copeland were obviously the baby faces. But I loved the triple spear spot, and then I also loved the finish. So. The match that I feel like they're building... My voice keeps squeaking so much. And I sound like my voice is dead. I swallowed something yesterday and it went down the wrong tube and I irritated myself trying to hack it back up. So that's a lovely visual for you guys. So I think they're building to a singles match between Malachi Black and Adam Copeland, which I would absolutely be interested in seeing. And honestly, House of Black needed this win. Adam goes for the spear. The referee is distracted because he's Rick Knox. Probably saw a particle of air or something floating around. I was like, oh, what's that? I'm distracted. And Edge goes for the spear, and Malachi misses him in the face, and then hits him with, I think they're calling it the end. I liked it a lot better when I was doing SCCG, and when he was Tommy End, and I called it Infinite Darkness, the Infinite Darkness kick. So I'm just going to call it Infinite Darkness. He hit him with Infinite Darkness and got the 1-2-3. They needed that win. Malachi Black, another person that just kind of seems like he's just in the weeds, just kind of wasting away, not really doing anything. But he needed this win, and he got a win over Edge, so that was cool. This was fine. Nothing you won't see on AEW television. It's just this was on pay-per-view. It wasn't bad, and there wasn't anything offensive in this match outside of Rick Knox being Rick Knox, even though again he was on his best behavior in this match. It was just another trios match. Up next, we have Julia Hart defending the TBS Championship in a House Rules match against Willow Nightingale. This was mercifully short. Honestly, I feel like this was the most perfectly timed match of the night. For me, anyway, because I kind of like Julia. I like her part of the song where it says the house always wins and the crowd always gets behind it. Her in-ring work is fine. I don't really like Willow Nightingale. Willow's in-ring is solid. It's just her personality annoys me. The whole smiley, happy, kitty-friendly babyface thing, I can't stand it. It's grating and irritating. It feels inauthentic to me. It's like early NXT Bayley ripoff. And that's exactly except without the wacky wailing inflatable Bayley arm buddy things that she thankfully decapitated with a knife. It's just Willow is just I'm Black Bayley from NXT. Hi, I'm a babyface. Let me high five your kids. And I just don't like it. Her in-ring work is fine, and this match was fine, but I just didn't really care. This was all just based. The whole reason this match happened was to get the TBS title on Willow Nightingale, so they can rekindle the feud with Mercedes Moné, who I will get to in a second. And nothing really stood out in this matchup. I mean, they worked well together. It was fine. I like that Willow Nightingale uses a Dr. Bomb as a finish because it works for her build. And power bombing the crap out of a smaller woman, that's one way to do it. I like it when people have a power bomb as a finisher. So yeah, this was fine. Not all that much to talk about. And then it sets up for Willow versus Mercedes Moné at Double or Nothing. And what is going to be Mercedes Moné's first match in AEW, even though she's been a part of the company for months now, and has done nothing but bad promos and bad commentary. I unless she like completely blows it out of the water at Double or Nothing, I'm just seeing Tony throwing however much money he's throwing at her as a massive waste of time. I do not give a single solitary shit about Mercedes Moné. She's, as Sean has said, she is the fourth of the four horsewomen. And she has no personality. I don't know, what is she the CEO of? I'll tell you why they call her the CEO, because the boss is trademarked by WWE, so they had to come up with something else. But the boss made sense. The CEO and her obnoxious ass CEO music is just obnoxious. And I don't like Mercedes. Maybe she'll be good. Maybe she's wickedly talented in the ring. We just haven't seen it ever in AEW because she hasn't had a match. Yeah, and even they were talking about on commentary, like, and was part of, like, the questioning for the feud. Like, why is she already getting a title? Even in kayfabe, they're acknowledging, why is she getting a title match in her first match? Because she's Mercedes Moné. She's Sasha Banks. Oh my god. And she has fans for some reason. I'm not a fan. But this match as a whole, even though it was just a setup for that face-off, it was fine. Next, we have Roderick Strong defending the AEW International Championship against Kyle O'Reilly, who looks homeless. Kyle O'Reilly looks better with short hair. But that aside, I love this match. This was on commentary, and I largely just tuned out the commentary the entire night. There were a few things that Nigel McGuinness said that made me crack up a little bit. But other than that, I can't stand AEW's commentary. I can't stand Excalibur. I hate Tony Schiavone. And Taz is there. And whenever they wheel out Jim Ross from the nursing home, he's also just there. At least Nigel is hilarious. So yeah, there's that. But again, I love this match. The commentary, the reason why I brought them up, they said that Okada and Pac was going to be the most physical match of the night. This was the most physical match of the night. These two, this was the most like legitimate like fight feeling match of the night. And I enjoyed everything except the finish. Just so yeah, this was great. This felt like two guys legitimately trying to hurt each other to win a championship. And I'm not going to go play-by-play through everything they did, but man, just the way that they interacted in the ring, the way that they transitioned, the way that they countered each other, it just felt like a real fight in the best way possible. It was magnificent. I love Roderick Strong's... I've always loved Roderick Strong's gimmick where he's the messiah of the backbreaker, and he just does 100 different versions of the backbreaker, and they all look like the most painful looking thing ever. I popped so hard when O'Reilly did some kind of kick and he caught his leg and his arm and gave him a pump handle backbreaker. I was just like, that was so gorgeous looking. Although I will say, a torture rack, excuse me, a torture rack backstabber, that should be a finisher. That is literally, on TAW, that is Darth Maul's finishing move. I love the end of Heartache, the suplex into the backbreaker, but the torture rack backbreaker, that should be a finishing move. But whatever. But again, and Kyle O'Reilly, even though he looks like a homeless man now, because of his long hair that he needs to cut, I think he should just go bald. Honestly, I think he should just go bald. And he looks like he has those enormous bags under his eyes. He just looks homeless. But man, when he turns it on to another level when he gets in the ring, and he never does like your prototypical pro wrestling moves. He always throws some kind of twist into it, like he did a back suplex in this match, but immediately transitioned mid slam into a leg lock, into a heel hook, and I was like, damn, that was solid. That was solid. And they hit each other so hard. They beat the shit out of each other the entire match, and it was great. Although, my one critique of Roderick Strong, whenever he does the bouncing off the ropes forearm to the face over and over, I hate that spot because he so clearly and obviously smacks his thigh for the sound effect. They tried to shoot around it. We'll give the cameraman credit. They tried to shoot to where you couldn't see him slapping the thigh, but it's so obvious that that's what he's doing. Oh, and there was another part where they were near the early stages of the match where they were getting out of the feeling process, and Roderick just jumps up and does this twisting single leg drop kick, this back kick, right into the face of Kyle O'Reilly. It was gorgeous. It was just gorgeous. I loved it. That was probably the best kick of the night. I loved it. So yeah, everything was going great, but then we get to the finish, and I didn't like it. I did not like the finish. It was mostly because it was just. I know that Wardlow, who is like just this poor guy, my heart aches for Wardlow. What could have been? Wardlow comes out and does nothing. And then Roderick Strong hits Kyle O'Reilly with the end of Heartache and pins him. And I was like, okay. I guess Wardlow's presence distracted Kyle O'Reilly a little bit and led to his defeat. It just felt very random. It was just very random. And I was like, I would have just taken Roderick Strong just beating Kyle O'Reilly clean. After this 17-minute competitive matchup, this hard-hitting brawl between these two, and then you just have Wardlow come out for the most minor, and I mean minor, of distractions, and that's it. I hated this finish. It was just so to me it was kind of like at WrestleMania 38 when it was AJ Styles versus Edge, and then all of a sudden a wild Damian Priest appeared at the end, and then AJ got speared and pinned. It wasn't as random as that because at least Roderick and Wardlow are in the same already established faction. So it made more sense than that. But still, I did not care for this finish. The match was great until the finish. And I also liked the little bit of interplay between Adam Cole and Wardlow. Adam Cole kept giving Wardlow the stink eye behind his back. I like that. And apparently Adam Cole is, he got out of his wheelchair. I don't know if he's 100% cleared or not, but I assume he is, so there's that. Up next was probably my least favorite thing on the show. We had Hook defending the FTW Championship, which is still a thing for some reason. It is their $1 million championship, against Chris Jericho in a hardcore match. I didn't hate this. I didn't. It was just honestly. There were parts of it that I thought were fine. Like, I actually really liked the finish. And I normally like these more hardcore matches. Sean and Skylar detest hardcore matches or any kind of no disqualification match. In AEW they do them way too much, which I will admit. But like that wasn't my problem with this. I just don't care about Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho in 2024 does less than nothing for me. I knew this was going to happen. My mom is calling me. My mom is doing a run-in. Hello?
Hi.
Hey, Mom, guess what?
What?
I'm recording a review of a wrestling show right now, and you are live on the air. Mom, Mom, what do you know about What do you know about AEW?
AEW, artificial egg withdrawal. I think it's awesome.
Mom.
Artificial things deserve just as much of a chance as anybody else.
Mom, Sean and Skylar are going to die when they hear this.
Oh, that's so sad. I hope that is not the case.
No,
I'm praying for you
that
guys.
was hysterical. Mom, thank you so much. You usually call me around this time, and I was kind of anticipating it. What are my chores for today?
Make sure you feed the dog in a timely manner, which would be soon. And I know you did pretty good, so you may not have anything else to do.
Okay.
Unless you want to fix us some dinner later on.
We shall see.
We shall see. All right, well, I'm going to go and eat.
Okay, I love you, Mom.
Bye. I love you too.
Artificial egg withdrawal. I will never not refer to AEW as that from now on. Oh my god, that was great. Thanks, Mom. Ugh. Anyway, so Hook versus Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho sucks. The crowd was literally chanting "Please retire" at him. They were literally giving him the Big Show "Please retire" chant. Also, Fozzy sucks and Jericho go home. Jericho go home, which I agree. Just Jericho does nothing for me. Hook was trying. Jericho's old and fat. It was the whole thing was a massive whatever. And Hook nearly killed both himself and Jericho trying to give him a suplex from the apron through a table. Trying to haul Jericho's fat ass over to the table, but again, Jericho is very rapidly losing his mobility. Also, water is wet. And the sky is blue. She wasn't on this show. She was actually banned from ringside. Again, this match was just fine. It is very hard for me to get into a Chris Jericho match nowadays, especially now. I just wanted it to end more than anything else because I can't stand Jericho. But again, I liked the finish. The finish was great. Even though Chris Jericho defeated Hook, they kept him as strong as possible. He had him in Red Rum, and Jericho hit him with a low blow, even though the camera cut and missed it. So you just got Hook selling the low blow. They had to show a replay. So good job, production team. I praised you earlier for hiding Roderick Strong slapping his thigh a million times, but you missed Chris Jericho giving Hook the low blow. Even though the announcers called it as well. And then Chris Jericho hit him with the Judas effect, which hardly anybody has ever kicked out of, and Hook kicked out of it. And then Chris Jericho hit him with a second Judas effect, and I thought that was it. But Hook kicked out again, and the crowd popped for it. So no one has ever survived 2 Judas effects. And then Jericho literally had to hit him in the face with a baseball bat to pin him. So I would have much rather Hook tap out Chris Jericho, but if they're going to prolong this, they did everything they could to keep Hook looking strong, because it took 2 Judas effects, a low blow, and a baseball bat to the face to pin this guy. And I loved Taz selling his disgust and his concern for Hook for this matchup. So it was kind of the opposite of the previous match, where I loved everything but the finish. And in this match, I just everything, and I loved the finish. So very weird. But yeah, this was probably my least favorite thing on the show. Up next, we had Timeless Toni Storm defending the AEW Women's Championship, the Women's World Championship, against Thunder Rosa. This was more along the, not as physical, but it kind of reminded me a little bit of the Roderick Strong Kyle O'Reilly match, because it was a little clunky in parts, but it was more akin to a struggle. These two were struggling for control, and they worked really well together. This isn't their first matchup against each other. I forget which their first match was against one another a couple years ago, but this was really good. It was weird seeing Thunder Rosa without her face paint on. It was weird seeing Toni wear whiteface, although again she's trying to do the whole throwback to the Marilyn Monroe era, which I feel honestly for me it's starting to get a little stale. I'm like, okay, I've seen this gimmick. What other layer is there to this? And I don't have all that much to say about this match other than I thought it was good. Although once again, I disliked the finish. I honestly, I don't have all that much to say about this match. I didn't like the finish because the finish was Toni Storm low blows Thunder Rosa, and then gives her the Storm Zero snap pile driver for the 1-2-3. We literally just had a match end with a low blow. The match previous. You do not need to do 2 low blow finishes on the same show, let alone in consecutive matches. At the very least, spread that out. Or just have one of that on the show. Also, another thing, there were so many superplexes on this show. There should be one superplex on the show. So that also annoyed me throughout the night. Like, just one superplex in one match. Not a superplex per match. That was kind of annoying. There was a superplex in this match. Although I guess you could argue that in Okada versus Pac, it was a super brainbuster, but now we're just getting into semantics. But we don't need to have Chris Jericho kick Hook in the balls and then pin him with a move or the baseball bat. And then in the next match, we don't need to have Toni kick Thunder Rosa in her privates and then pin her with her finishing. It's just very repetitive. Like, I saw this as lazy booking. This was lazy booking. But up next, ladies and gentlemen, we have, honestly, what kind of saved the show. We had, honestly, a match of the year contender. The best match of the night. Will Ospreay versus Bryan Danielson. Some people are calling this the greatest match in the history of AEW. I don't know if I would go that far myself, but it is easily the match of the night. Nothing came close to this. And definitely one of the best matches of the year so far. This, I will say one thing about this, the crowd was white hot for this match. This and Cody versus Roman on night 2, perhaps the best crowd reaction. The crowd was electric for this match. And Will Ospreay and Bryan Danielson have chemistry. They work really well together. And this, even though, again, you could argue and criticize that this didn't, none of the matches on this show really had that much of a story. This was very much just, you say you're the best wrestler in the world, I'm the best wrestler in the world, and we're going to have a dream match. And another thing, I hated that the ring announcer, Justin Roberts, announced this as an absolute dream match. It's one thing if the announcers say that, or the fans, or the wrestlers. I don't need the announcer to confirm that, yes, this is indeed a dream match. That was cringe. I didn't like it. It just was very goofy. But again, this was a fantastic match. And these two, it was a blend of high flying. It was high flying versus technical ability. It was honestly like the yin and yang of each other. Will Ospreay is known for high flying, but he can technically, he can do a technical match when he wants to. Bryan Danielson is a technical wrestler, but he can do high flying when he wants to. So they're kind of a yin and yang of each other, and that worked very well in this matchup. And for those of people saying that Will Ospreay can't sell, he actually sold his ass off multiple times in this matchup. He sold his gut in this match very well, and he sold his arm in this matchup very well. And Bryan Danielson picked him apart. Like, ruthless, I'm going to hurt you, Bryan Danielson, is just a pleasure to watch. And Will Ospreay, I wasn't that big of a fan of Will Ospreay back in the day because he was just a flipper. All he did was flip. Like that Will Ospreay Ricochet match that's notorious. I hate that match. It was just a gymnastics routine. It wasn't a match. This Will Ospreay is a much better Will Ospreay because he still does a bunch of flips and a bunch of cool moves, but not anywhere near as much. He's more intense. He does more like actual like wrestling moves, and he flies around a lot less. But the sequences in this match were insane. Like the whole sequence where he missed the hidden blade and the crowd nearly shat themselves, and Bryan Danielson hit the Busaiku knee. That was great. The whole sequence where Bryan Danielson, I can't. Again, it's been a little bit since I've seen this, and I'm working on not much sleep, so my memory is a little foggy. But the part where Will Ospreay tried to go for the Oz Cutter off of a move, and Bryan Danielson caught him in midair with another Busaiku knee right to the chin. That was orgasmic. That was just gorgeous. I loved that spot. And there were so many spots like that in this match. And just go, if there's a match that you should go out of your way to go see on this show, I would definitely recommend the opener, Okada and Pac, and Ospreay and Danielson. Those were by far the two best matches of the night. It was great. I adored this match. Again, I think people are the people that are considering this to be the second coming of Christ are kind of overplaying it a little bit. But it still was pretty damn good. And you have two amazing, very gifted wrestlers just going at it. And I could have done with more of a story, not gonna lie. But that doesn't take away from the fact that these two absolutely killed it. And I loved the finish of this match. We had some weak finishes on this show. We had some good finishes on this show. This was one of the good finishes. Will Ospreay and Bryan Danielson, they're exhausted, but they're in opposite corners. And they're like, it turns into a Mexican standoff. The Busaiku knee versus the hidden blade. And they're like, who's going to pull the trigger first? So they both go for a Dragon Ball Z clash. It's just that Will Ospreay happened to hit the hit. He was the one that was able to hit his move, because they both went for their move at the same time. But Will Ospreay just nearly decapitated Danielson with a hidden blade. And then he drops him with the Tiger Driver. Now, Bryan Danielson sold this like death. He sold this like he was internally decapitated. Just twitching and seizing. The referee immediately called for a doctor, and then Will Ospreay hit him with another hidden blade just to ensure that he was victorious. And Danielson was like on the ground just twitching, going, fuck. Danielson sold this just immaculately. Like it was like a paralysis angle. Although when you watch, This was not like when Will Ospreay dropped Kenny Omega on his head at Forbidden Door and we're all wondering how he didn't accidentally paralyze Omega. This was a lot more safe. Like, Danielson landed on his back and his shoulders. He was fine. But the selling was ridiculous. The selling was great. And I love that Will Ospreay, the big babyface, yeah, he was just jacked and he was pumping with adrenaline. He was focused on winning the match. Safety be damned. Which, hey, that illustrates how important winning the match is. And then I love that Will Ospreay afterwards, being a babyface, turned around and was like, but is Bryan okay? He was concerned for Bryan Danielson. I like that. So this was a massive thumbs up. Although they've got to get Will Ospreay out of the Callis family. I don't understand the whole thing that they're doing. They need to just Will Ospreay is obviously a babyface, and they're priming him to be the top babyface in AEW. But they've got to pull the trigger on him breaking away from the Callis family. Although they've already done all the infighting matches, for some reason, I don't get the whole Don Callis family thing. I did like the crowd started chanting, fuck Don Callis. That was funny. So yeah, this was great. I 100% recommend go watch this match. Up next, we had the tournament finals ladder match for the vacant AEW World Tag Team titles. The Young Bucks versus FTR. Also known as the match where the crowd tried to care, but they were gassed. The crowd was exhausted at this point. I mentioned earlier, don't blow your wad prematurely. They blew their wad for the Will Ospreay Bryan Danielson match. They tried to get up for this ladder match, and they tried to get up for the main event, but you could tell that the crowd was tired. Although, there is one positive I will say about this match. About this show in general. Normally, we criticize AEW for shows that go on for like 3 years, that their shows go on forever. this show, it went along at a brisk pace. It did not feel like it went on forever. This was one of the shorter AEW pay-per-views, and I appreciate that. Although I suspect that Double or Nothing is going to be a long show, because that's practically their... it was practically their WrestleMania, although I guess All In's going to be their WrestleMania now. But I do appreciate that this was, I think, just under 3 hours. Again, I didn't watch the 0 hour Dark 30 pre-show, so I only watched the main show. But again, this was not the longest show. But back to the Young Bucks versus FTR. I don't like the Young Bucks because I just the whole thing with CM Punk just really outed them as being insanely childish, loser dorks. So it's hard for me to get into a match with them in it. And I don't like FTR. Dax is fine. I really do not like Cash Wheeler. Cash just... he just comes off to me like a dumbass. I still can't get over that incident where he pulled a gun on somebody in Florida. Because where else would you pull a gun on somebody? He just comes off to me like an idiot. And this whole feud, they honestly killed this feud for me. Like, they had the rubber match at All In, and I actually liked that match. And FTR won. But then they had this match, and they interjected the whole CM Punk backstage footage for no reason other than they were mad that CM Punk went on Ariel Helwani's show and talked shit about them. That was the only reason why that happened, and to pop a rating. And boy, they did. They went from 700,000 views to 800,000 views. Wow, what a change. Call me back when you have 2 million views. But I just couldn't get into this. Again, this was a spot fest ladder match with a whole bunch of crazy spots and ladders and tables and chairs. Oh my. This was basically a TLC match. And the spots were cool. And the crowd popped for them. And I liked some of the spots. They scared the shit out of me with that pile driver on the ladder bridge where the ladder fell mid-pile driver. And I'm like, how in God's name did you not accidentally murder one of the Bucks? That was scary. That was very scary. But luckily, they were fine. And I like that Dax got some juice. There was only one match on this show that got juice, and it was this match. And if there were a match to get juice for, it would be this match. So it was well placed and added to the match, and I like that they showed restraint as far as using blood is concerned on this show. Because usually it's in like 3 matches, especially if Jon Moxley is involved. Jon Moxley's probably bleeding somewhere as we speak. But yeah, it's hard for me to get into a match where I hate or don't care about the people involved. The only person I liked in this match was Dax. Dax was great in this match. Cash was fine, although to further point out how in kayfabe and in real life, I just don't think he's that intelligent of a person. He did outside dives and a moonsault off a ladder in this matchup. Isn't your whole thing no flips, just fists? So in kayfabe, you're a hypocrite. I don't like Cash Wheeler. Probably of the 4 people involved, Cash Wheeler is probably my least favorite person in the match. Not to say he's a bad wrestler, he's fine. I just can't stand him personally. And the Young Bucks are the Young Bucks. A lot of people despise, like Sean and Skylar, despise the Young Bucks about as much as Jim Cornette does. I'm just very... Like, I don't care. I think they're incredibly childish and obnoxious. But, like, when they're going in the ring, I'm just like... It's a Young Bucks match. They're doing all the flips. They're doing the super kicks. They're doing what they normally do. Although I will say their EVP trigger looked a lot more brutal in this match than it has in any of their other matches. Like, they actually nailed Cash with it, so that was good. Fun fact, this might be a controversial opinion. The Young Bucks do better super kicks than the Usos. So, if I had to pick, like, if someone's going to do super kicks, I would rather see the Young Bucks do super kicks than the Usos, because the Usos, sometimes their super kicks look good, but sometimes their super kicks look really sloppy. Every super kick the Young Bucks did in this matchup, they looked like, you know, what you would expect out of a super kick. They looked kind of devastating. But, this is going to sound so weird, The way they did the finish in this match was superb. The finish, even though it involved people that I don't like, it was done it was executed about as well as you could. So, I think it was Cash, or it was either Cash or Dax, was nearing the belts, and they were about to rip it down. But then this dude in a mask jumps the barricade, knocks over the ladder, and the security tackle him. They're like, oh, it's a fan! And they take off the mask, and it's Jack Perry. And the crowd nearly shits themselves. They're like, oh no! Honestly, the reveal, the smirk, the evil smirk on Jack Perry's face, and the crowd reaction, all together, it was so perfect. It was so perfectly done. I don't like Jack Perry, although, again, thank you for letting CM Punk come back to WWE. Good on you. If Jack Perry can capitalize on being like a mega heel, which in the hands of a competent booker, I would be more interested, but it's Tony Khan. Tony Khan's erratic, nonsensical booking, I don't trust. But for tonight, it worked. I just don't think that Tony Khan's going to be able to follow up on it in a way that makes sense or can sustain it. But the Young Bucks win the World Tag Team titles. So now they're even in the series. 2 for FTR, 2 for the Young Bucks. So we're going to have another rubber match at some point, I assume. But I didn't really care about this match up until the finish. The finish I thought was perfect. So this match was fine. I usually like these car crash ladder matches. Like, I thought the WrestleMania tag team ladder match for the SmackDown and Raw tag team titles, I thought that was a lot better of a match than this match. There was a lot more selling in that match than this one. But this one was fine. I didn't hate this match. I loved the finish. And then we move on to our main event. Samoa Joe defending the AEW World Heavyweight Championship against Swerve Strickland. Once again, Swerve and Samoa Joe tried their absolute damnedest, but the crowd was so tired. The crowd was exhausted. Excuse me. The crowd was so tired. The crowd was so exhausted. And the crowd tried. They tried to get into this match, and I commend them. And this match was very good. It was a good match. Although they clearly had trouble topping the previous 2 matches, like how great the Will Ospreay Bryan Danielson match was, and the crazy spot fest that was the previous ladder match. It was kind of like how The Rock and Hulk Hogan stole the show at WrestleMania, and then Triple H and Chris Jericho had to try and follow that, and it didn't really work. Or Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker stole the show at WrestleMania, and Triple H and Randy Orton had to try to follow that, and it didn't really work. It was kind of like that, except not that bad. Like, this was not a bad match. This was actually a very good match. It's just, you could tell the crowd was tired. And you want to talk about people that have chemistry? Swerve Strickland and Samoa Joe have insane chemistry. They work so well together. Samoa Joe every once in a while will do this sweeping leg sweep. He did this sweeping leg sweep on Swerve Strickland. It was the most brutal, effective, amazing looking leg sweep I've ever seen. So much that the crowd went, oh! He took out this dude's knees and Swerve bounced face first off the mat, and now Andy is texting me. Now I'm having a run-in from Andy. First my mom and now Andy. Even she was like, wow, that leg sweep was something else. But man, Swerve Strickland can bump like mad. This dude is an underrated seller and bumper. And Joe is such a good monster. Although there was a point where Swerve Strickland did the Fosbury flop to the outside, and he, like, I don't know how solid the connection was, but it looked like he needs Samoa Joe right on the top of the head. So that had to hurt. Although, again, talking about repeated moves, in the first match, Pac did this very exact move, the Fosbury flop to the outside, except he landed on his feet. We do not need to repeat moves in matches. Although he didn't nearly crush Okada's skull with his knee, So I guess it was more of a Fosbury flop knee strike in this one. So I guess I'll give it a pass. So these two worked very well together. And it was Joe trying his usual stuff and trying to put away Swerve Strickland. There was some really good sequences in this match. Again, these two have chemistry. The one thing that I would have loved to have seen, Samoa Joe likes to build a head of steam and basically do a JBL clothesline from hell. I would have loved to see Samoa Joe clothesline the shit out of Swerve Strickland and Swerve Strickland take an insane inside out bump for it. That would have been phenomenal, but we didn't get that. He went for it, but Swerve ducked it. And this was just a really good match. And the finish was fine. What they were trying to do was, the Muscle Buster didn't work. The Coquina Clutch didn't work. The Swerve Stomp didn't work. So Swerve was trying to do a super Swerve Stomp, where Joe was also on the top with him. The idea was he was going to go for it, but Joe was going to, move forward and dodge the attack. Problem is, they were both exhausted, and Joe is a large gentleman, so he kind of moved a millimeter, if I'm being generous. And Swerve just kind of jumped over him and landed on the mat. So that didn't quite go exactly how they planned. Bunny immediately turned around and powerbombed Joe, and then gave him another Swerve Stomp for the 1-2-3. The crowd popped hard. The crowd really loved that Swerve Strickland got the 1-2-3 and became the AEW World Champion. And I did too. This was the night to do it. This was the time. They had to do this tonight. I love Joe, but it was Swerve Strickland's time. So Swerve Strickland is the new AEW World Heavyweight Champion. And I'm glad. I said earlier in the year, if Swerve Strickland does not become AEW World Champion soon, I'm gonna be pissed. I'm very happy that Swerve is the AEW World Champion, and hopefully he has a decent reign with it. So yeah, that was the show. I had some criticisms here and there, but by and large, I enjoyed my time. There was nothing on this show that I felt was super offensive that I absolutely hated, other than Chris Jericho existing, or Cash Wheeler existing. But other than that, there weren't any terrible matches on this show. And definitely go out of your way to go watch Will Ospreay and Bryan Danielson. Also, go watch Okada and Pac in the opener. And just go see Swerve Strickland win the title from Joe. So yeah, all in all, I thought this was a good show. Not the best show they've ever done, but this was definitely one of their better shows. It was way better than World's End, and I thought it was way better than Revolution. I didn't really care that much for World's End or Revolution, but this was a good, solid pay-per-view. And I will give this a solid 7 out of 10. So, good job, AEW. You seriously got some problems, though. A lot of people have been saying, AEW usually has good pay-per-views, but their TV is in the toilet. I didn't really like their previous two pay-per-views, so I wouldn't exactly say that. But their TV is absolutely in the toilet. Tony, stop letting what people say about you get to you so bad. Focus on bettering your show. Or, what I would love for you to do, step aside. There is so much talent on this show. There's so much potential still in this show. But it's not going to go anywhere as long as Tony Khan is in charge. So I would love to be an AEW fan again. But I just can't fully care or support this company as long as Tony Khan is in charge. And as long as certain things happen, the thing with CM Punk can never happen again with anyone else. Because it nearly killed this company. And the after effects are still being felt. A lot of which are because of self-inflicted wounds that Tony Khan stupidly inflicted upon his own company. So, watching this show is a very mixed thing for me. Because while it was a good show, I have so many reservations about the company at large. Because I hate Tony Khan. I want to like this show, but I hate the guy that runs it. I just wish that this show was run by somebody else. Because this was a good show, and I want there to be more good shows. I want Dynamite to be good. I want either Rampage or Collision to be dropped because those two shows are useless. But I want Dynamite to be, like, I watch Raw and SmackDown just about every week. Because most weeks those shows, maybe not the best wrestling shows, but they move the storylines along and things happen that make the show must-see. I want Dynamite to be the same. I want this company to have a pulse again. Because right now it kind of doesn't. Even though this was a good show, AEW has never been less interesting. There are no huge stories. There are no interesting stories. There's nothing to really get behind other than, oh, this match would be cool. Like, Will Ospreay and Bryan Danielson was an amazing match, but it was just that. You need more than that. You need consistency. You need relevancy. You need stability. You need a booker who isn't on crack or Adderall or whatever the hell Tony Khan is on. So, even though I like this show, I still have reservations about the company itself. Thank you guys so much for watching my review. Let me know what you thought about my mom's run-in, because I love that. But again, thank you guys so much for listening. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that fun stuff. And I'll see you guys later. Good night, everybody.